Hello, and we are live. I'm excited to be back. It's been a little bit of a break these last couple months. Had some travel in there, so we're excited to be back with Josh Yonke of Leashed AI. And we're going to be talking about something that comes up quite often with my clients on what is conversational AI and explaining that a little bit and what the use cases are. And a lot of the feedback that I've been getting over the last few months was great. We don't want to just talk AI, we want to see it. So we are going to be showing exactly what conversational AI is, what AI agents are, and talking through some of these use cases that can be applicable to you and just expand your knowledge in this space. So really excited to have Josh here. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
And how we got connected, sometimes it's kind of fun to share how I get connected with people. So, back last fall, I was doing a presentation at the University of Utah on combining artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence and how those two things tie together. And I think this is very applicable for this conversation. But somebody that was in the audience that day that was in attendance, Scott, knows a friend of mine that connected me in, and they said, hey, we're launching and have this new platform called Leashed AI that we would love for you to come and check out. And I've just been a fan ever since, and seeing the impact that this can make within the businesses. And even for myself, we were doing a prep call yesterday, Josh and I, and I'm like, oh, I could do this and
You
I
can
could do
use
this.
that too. Show me that later.
Yeah, can we do a follow-up here? Because I would love to use this even in my own business as I look at social and looking at outreach and sales and marketing and employee onboarding. Like we're gonna cover the bases here today with Josh, and just share a lot of great things that are coming and coming quickly, and want to make sure everybody's aware of these opportunities that are out there. So as we get kicked off, and before we turn it over to Josh to really walk us through some of these really incredible use cases, I do want to put out there that we are doing an offer, stay to the end, because Josh is going to give an offer that is incredible. So stay through the end of the show, see everything he's going to show today, as well as be able to get that offer at the end. But use this QR code to schedule time with us. We can do personal reviews of your current business, your current role, your use cases. How could you implement it? We can do that. We're offering that as well, a free 45-minute session. So take advantage of that, hit the QR code, and then also understand, and this is one of the biggest things that I'm seeing in the industry right now as they make these huge AI transformations, is it starts with training. And that's really where we come in, is to really help set the foundations for how can you level up your workforces in understanding AI, optimizing how you're using AI, put the guardrails in place for risk management reviews, making sure you've got the governance, security, identity, all of those things. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with Josh today, about there are considerations here that you need to have when implementing these agents. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh. I'm going to let you do more of an introduction of yourself as
Yeah.
well.
Well, thank you.
Um,
Well, I don't know.
and
You had such a
uh,
great one.
I always know people can introduce themselves a lot better than I can. So, we're going to let you take a couple minutes here and just talk about your background. How did you get into this, first of all? Because I think that would be intriguing to hear as well.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a fun story. I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but it's been a fun ride to say the very least. So I'm Josh. I'm the CRO over here at Leashed AI. I've got a few partners, one of which is our CTO, and he's basically the brains behind the software here. I guess myself and my other partner Russell, who's our CEO, or the brains of the operations, if you will. So we always make the joke of who's the smart one and who's the pretty one. So I couldn't tell you which one's which.
You're both, right?
Is that what it is? I'm a hybrid. All right. Well, I'll make sure to tell Russell and Chris this. Well, I guess as far as my background, I've been in tech pretty much my entire career. Most recently was the head of sales at a company called Thumbtack. Was with them for about 7 years. Helped them build out their Pretty much was their first sales hire, built out to a couple hundred salespeople at this point. Fantastic company, absolutely love what they do. In fact, had never really had any intention of going anywhere else. Continued to grow, and frankly was sort of my baby, if you will. But my other partner Russell really. Initially, and he's really good at this, sort of finessing his way in here. I always make the comment of he courted me for about 6 months and would come and show me, hey, look at this cool thing, look at this new thing we can do. And of course, initially, really sort of said, it was just my friend. I'm like, hey, that's all right. Hey, maybe you should do this, blah, 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 blah. About 6 months into it, I realized, hey, you know what, you're trying to bring me on here. And frankly, at that point, I had seen so much of it and so much of what it could do. And frankly, all the use cases for my sales team, the compliance pieces, the follow-ups, the speed to lead, all the things that is so difficult
sales
to get
background for sure.
Your teams, right? And
yeah,
you train and you bang these things into folks' heads over and over. But about 6 months into it, it really did try to keep this long story short, went, hey, this does everything that I need my people to do. Well, where do I sign? How much money do you need? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And then sort of the rest is history. So,
yeah, it's incredible. I think especially with your sales background, seeing the opportunities for the outreach, and we're going to be talking about the voice side of it. I find that just incredible. And as we kind of get things kicked off here, I know we're going to cover a few different use cases today. We're going to talk about conversational AI is more than just one channel. It's multi-channel, right? And that's one of the challenges that I've seen, even for myself and my companies and other companies I'm working with. It's like you can tool yourself to death. That's the way I call it.
It's overwhelming. Right?
It's overwhelming. It's like, where do I start? Because I've got to get a CRM system, and then I have to have a separate SMS system and a separate email system. And then how do I tie all these things together? And that's really what I love about Leashed AI is it's consolidating all of these different engagement pipelines and implementing AI agents to be able to help you staff up quickly. Or I call it staff up. You're staffing up an AI team, right, behind you to really help facilitate all of these different engagement channels without having to do the back end heavy lifting from an IT perspective to get all these tools together. So I'm really excited to kind of share some of those. Before we get in, one thing that I would like to do is like I said, we start with training, a little education session, if you will. And I'm gonna put it in my context. I love for you to add kind of your perspective, having done this within Leashed AI, as far as what is an AI agent. And the way I look at an AI agent and the way I've worked with our clients is you've got to really look at it as a role. It's not an AI agent to do everything. And in order to get that overwhelm and really understand what it takes to put these AI agents in place and get very tactical, if you will, is to figure out what is the role that we're wanting to focus on. And then what are the different tasks that role does. And then it makes it really easy once you can define that to be able to implement one of these AI agents to say, okay, yeah, this is repeatable. I can put these things into place and I can put that AI agent together to then solve those solutions. And then what's great with Leashed AI, it means I can go out multi-channel for one agent, right?
Exactly.
So how anything you would clarify or add?
No, I think you're really close there. So like it, and this has been a year and a half of me trying to figure out how to explain this to people, and I think you're honestly really close. It's really a function or a task, right? So we will build and I'll just use Rise Next example. We would build a singular Rise Next brain. Right. Mm-hmm. But okay, so that's the knowledge base. That's where we know everything about Rise Next and how to answer questions. But okay, so what are the functions? Well, we'll use maybe our conversation yesterday. Well, hey, I need somebody to respond to social media DMs, 24 hours a day and immediately, right? That's
Right.
one task, right? So that's something, and we'll get into this in a little bit. I'll show an example of that. That's our social responder. But I need an outbound agent to make outbound phone calls to set appointments for me. That's another
Mhm.
task, right? And that agent can also send SMS and email, and I'll actually show here a little bit sort of how to tie that all together. We went out and built. We're still working on the naming convention, but essentially a campaign flow editor where you can
Yeah.
take either all of your internal tech stack, or you can use ones that I've set up partnerships with as well for email, for SMS, for phone calls, utilizing your current phone numbers, really trying to, implement this without changing the landscape, without this huge heavy lift of I need to go talk to 9 vendors or anything like that. So, but sort of, I won't get too far or too deep into that right now. But yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty spot on. And again, like trying to explain this to forget the term, the layman, right? I've
Mhm.
found that AI is one of those spaces where you either know very little or you know very much, and there's no middle ground right now,
Yeah.
right? So trying to really explain how this can help people and what it does, really is probably been the most difficult part, as
Yeah.
opposed to actually
So
getting
that's
it.
why we want to show it, right?
Yep.
So that's what we're going to do today. So why don't what's the first use case that we want to dig into here?
I mean, we can. You know what? I think we talked about 2 of them there.
Yeah.
Maybe we look at the ease of use and the setup of this, and essentially connecting our current tech stacks or utilizing the ones that we've built out or the partnerships
Yeah.
we've went out and got, and sort of showing exactly how easy that is. So
Yeah. Let's
I'll
do it.
pull up the campaign flow editor if that's a great place to start, Trina, and then maybe I can
Okay.
we can jump into some of these specific use cases and examples of conversational AI as well. Does
Great.
that work?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Do, do. All righty. Let me throw this in slideshow so people can see it. But this is essentially our dashboard, right? We've created this to where, and just to double check here, Trina, before I get on too far into this, you can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've tried to make this as easy as possible, right? We knew that the landscape within AI was exactly what it said. You either know nothing about it and know you need it, but you don't know what you
Mhm.
need and what you want, or you know everything and you've already got it yourself in the first place. So we wanted to build something that was super easy to where you could have a team member come in here and build out an agent. You start with make a call. Okay, well, what happens from there? All right, we're either going to make that phone call and schedule an appointment, or we're going to get a voicemail. There's going to be no answer, or there's some scenario where you're transferring it to a human, right? So that's actually
Mhm.
a really good call and a good space to bring this up. We know that not everyone is going to talk to an AI. Now we've focused on the quality of our voice, and I think that I have several voices that I don't think you'd even know the difference between AI and this. And
Oh no.
but we want to create this to where if somebody gets frustrated, so the AI could actually listen to the tonality and go, hey, it sounds like you're frustrated. Get a human on the line, and then literally do essentially a warm transfer of, hey, I was talking to Trina and she got a little frustrated with X, Y, and Z. I wanted to bring you up to speed. Here were her issues, and I will hop off the phone right now.
Can I
Right?
can I
So
say something regarding that? Because this is
please.
what I keep talking about of AI plus EI. It's the
Yep.
emotional intelligence piece that not everybody that's human has deep levels of emotional intelligence, but AI does. And
Okay.
and to be able to discover the tone or know how to best react rather than not getting our own emotional reaction. This is kind of, and I'm writing a book on this right now, so that's why I kind of I get excited about this. Um, is the fact that it can identify the tone and understand how to respond based on the tone of the person on the call. That
Excellent.
is incredible. I just kind of want to pause a moment to call that out, because that's one of the biggest things. Is it's not just like productivity always, it's creating better experiences for our clients and for our customers, for our employees, because of some of the nuances of what it's able to identify on an emotional intelligence level,
Yeah.
right? Which
I
is
think
amazing.
I think the other piece too, like, and totally agree with you. The other piece too is the human in the loop aspect, right? Is not just covering the people who go, I'm never going to talk to an AI, but also, the AI needs somebody that's an expert in that field, right? And
Mhm.
those are your team members. There's that team member goes from being an SDR to at SDO. They're operating
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
AIs. That operations manager who's typically doing all of the calculations and putting things together and building the graphs and reporting. Now they're telling it what to do. AI is only excuse me, as good as the person telling it what to do, right? If you
Yeah.
take somebody that has zero experience in that field, then yeah, that AI is probably not going to be great.
Yeah.
But if you take somebody that's an expert, somebody like yourself, that knows business operations and customer experience and can really make this thing into what it should be,
Yeah.
that's when you see success, right?
Yeah.
I think of ChatGPT and all the different things I see out there with the emails and excuse me, and I think to myself, I mean, this is only as good as the person putting in the prompts and the queries.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is one of the other things that comes into the EI space is the fear, right? Of like, this is going to take our jobs. It's going to go away. I hear that a lot, but it's just, there are more jobs coming up because of this. Like I look at this flow, you've got to have people that understand this process, that knows how to be able to pull your data to be able to feed into these, to be able to have the AI understand your business and the right
I mean, this is a
response.
TPM, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is something TPMs do all the time with IVRs, with different systems internally. And I mean, if you don't have a good TPM or an operations person that understands how these should all work together and their tech stack and so on and so forth, then it really becomes, in a lot of cases, all for naught, right?
Yeah.
It'd sure be a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. But I like the visualization of this, right? It makes it more logical, at least from my perspective of like, and very simple. Sometimes I've seen platforms out there that are extremely complicated. You almost don't need to be an AI, like a developer.
Exactly.
Even they say, no code, but it's still extremely complicated. I've looked at a few where I'm like, I don't even know where to start. This is very simple, great, easy way to get up and going and get productivity benefits quickly. It's like, okay, I'm going to make a call here. I'm going to then follow up with an email. I'm going to send an SMS. I've used cases like this day in and day out, like where, both within Rise Next or with Tech Moms, when I'm following up with students and I'm like, okay, we're going to send out this link and I need to follow up and then send an email. And here anymore, you've got to go on every channel to be able to get engagement back. Like,
And I mean, that's industry specific as well. If you've got, I think, home services, good luck on getting them on email.
Yeah.
But you can shoot them an SMS while they're at the job site. They'll check that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think
follow up
you're
via the email. It's omni-channel, right?
Yep.
You've got to be able to hit from everywhere in order to drive engagement and awareness, and then being able to pull that in. Tell me a little bit more on the back end, the integration side of it. What's within that integration side? Is that just feeding in from your data sources?
Yeah, I mean it's current tech stacks, right? So hey, I give you an example. Okay, we want to make a phone call. Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
We can make a phone call all day long, but do you want that phone call to go into your CRM notes? Do you want a disposition of that phone call? Do you want to be able to track that, right? So like that would be a prime example of an integration. We got your CRM, and this acts as an agent doing a task, and that task is making a phone call. You want the AI to come back and say, hey, here's what happens, right? So for example, in this scenario where let's call this particular draft here, if you will, a SDR, right?
Mm-hmm.
That SDR schedules an appointment. We sure want our salesperson to know what the AI talked to the customer about, so they're not coming back in asking the same questions, things like that. So in this example I'm giving, an integration would just be the CRM, adding the notes in there, adding the disposition, what happened, what did they talk about, setting that person up for success for the next phone call, right?
Yeah, and if I understand, so if somebody's wanting, let's say it's a startup, right, and they're just starting off on this, there's no reason you have to be an enterprise client or mid to large scale. You offer a CRM system.
Yep. So we do offer a CRM system, but I mean, I can do this from a CSV. Now, we want a solid knowledge base. And I will say having the integrations does make this substantially more dynamic, and it does give it a much larger knowledge base to be able to look at things and be able to add those notes and things of that nature. But I mean, like we can run this off a CSV. But I
Okay.
definitely encourage that use your current tech stack. Let's integrate to it, and I
Yeah.
do think that's a much more positive experience both on the customer side and on the company side as well.
Yeah. And as you scale, right?
Yep.
That's the key here. You're gonna the goal here is to drive growth, and once you start scaling, it makes it hard to make that transition.
Exactly.
So start off with not having to have um, all the different systems. I think that's been even for myself with 30 years in tech, and you're starting to build out a company and you're starting to build out your operations, trying to figure out the right tech stack to start with. This solves so many of those issues, right?
No, it's very similar to that comment that you made the other day of not needing 40 different point solutions to accomplish three
Yeah.
goals, right? I mean, that's not the term you used. I made that up on the fly, but
Yeah.
it is, hey, you don't need all these, and a lot of these, it's again, working with you and working with somebody like yourself, where you can consult on this and, hey, you don't have to do that. Pull it all into one,
Yeah.
right? And again, we've set up, various partnerships and things of that nature, for email, for SMS, but we don't have to. We can also use internal systems, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, like email, I would probably encourage let's use an external system so we're not bombarding people and getting those particular domains in trouble with Google or whatever other system. But it does work with internal systems, external systems. So I'll take this a little bit further. This sort of dovetails into it, and I probably could do a better job explaining. But that's why we're called Leashed AI, right? We started with, we're very proud of the fact that we started before we even took our first clients and built out our own proprietary middleware that works with essentially any LLM. If I've got a client that says, I want to work with this ChatGPT 4.0 specifically, I don't know why somebody would say that, but if they did, this is something that works with it. We wanted to build a product that is
scalable.
something that integrates straight into either your current systems, or we can work with you and consult on best practices with the vendors we've set up and partners we've set up at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's been one of the other concerns, going back to client concerns about moving forward with a solution, is not understanding what is going to be the best solution in the future. And so with that, you get the flexibility of saying, okay, it may be ChatGPT now, but it might be Claude, it might be Anthropic, it might be Grok, who knows, right?
You are so
What might
spot
be
on.
the one for the right, what's like the fear of picking the wrong thing keeps you from
What
being able
happens
to
in
move
4
forward.
years after we spend all this money and
then you're like,
place
oh,
all our
wait.
bets here?
But you can swap out that back end, because this is a middleware service, to be able to say, okay, now we're going to switch over because now we see that we're getting better results from this LLM, or even your own personal LLMs, which we see privatized ones being done all the time now, right? So that's amazing. And I understand that you've been working with like a lot of franchisee type companies
We
where
do a lot on the franchise and multi-location side.
yeah. And so one of the use cases, and I don't know if this is where you want to go next, that we had talked about, is onboarding a new franchise. And this is one where I have seen at every organization I've worked with the same need for quickly onboarding or ramping new clients, new sites, new employees, right? Of giving them a conversational AI platform where they can get all the knowledge that they need to be able to onboard. So I don't know if I jumped ahead, but is that one that you can talk through a little bit about some of these onboarding experiences through conversational AI?
Yeah. And forgive me if I go a little bit deeper, because we've got a product that to your point helps with the onboarding and it can be skinned in so many different ways. It can be standalone, and you can just upload your operating manual or your SOPs into it,
Right.
and that'll be able to answer those questions. We could skin it into the CRM if the entire. In theory, most of the companies should be using the CRM. We could throw it in there, and it can ask questions. I think of the multiple companies I've been with over the years, and the onboarding process and the enablement process. How do I use the CRM? I remember honestly the biggest hurdle for any of my new salespeople is how do I input a sale? When
Yeah.
somebody finally says yes, what do I do? I know I've been trained on this multiple times, but I haven't done it. I haven't gone through this and gone through this process. And
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I can count of hey, hold on, put them on mute. Let me show you how to do this. Click here, click there, click
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different use cases for this. And essentially we've got a new product that we just rolled out called Ask HQ, right? And this is that secondary component of not just the onboarding and enablement piece, and I'll show it to you here in a second, but also the ongoing pieces, right? I mean, think of how much time is spent answering the same question from a different person all day long. How much do we spend here? Hey, what is my budget? Hey, how do I make this fruit smoothie the same way that the other 500 locations makes the same fruit smoothie?
Absolutely. I actually had a franchise with that same thing where they were trying to onboard new management teams, and they're very young, right? So they haven't had prior experience. It's like coming in brand new, and they were implementing these conversational AI onboarding platforms just so you could ask and answer any question. I think HR organizations would hugely benefit from this, right? From within.
Am I allowed to still say this in a public format?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's exactly
management, like all of those things. Like, what are our guidelines, our employee guidelines, or leadership guidelines that I should be following? How should I conduct this performance review? Whatever it might be. I think there's a lot of there's a use case here for everything on these conversational AI approaches.
I mean, it integrates what you want it to integrate to. Does it integrate into the CRM? And as long as your knowledge base for these things, the SOPs you're talking about and things of that nature, are they in there or are they in their own manual and we need to upload them? And so this is very dynamic in how it can be used, who it can be used for, and when it can be used. Right? Is that when they're first coming on? Is that ongoing? Is that later on? So, again, we initially built it out, not realizing all of the use cases, but it was really just to alleviate the leadership team and give them 10% of their lives back because they're not answering the same questions 60 times in a week.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I remember, and I'm sure you remember this one as well, of did you Google it? Now it's now, so like it's now the internal. Did you check Ask HQ before you came and stole 15 minutes of my time for me to answer the same question I've answered 4 times this week?
Yeah.
So, and as opposed to going, why didn't you show up to this meeting? I can go, hey, did you Ask HQ?
Yeah.
But yeah, do you want to see it?
A lot of time. Yeah, bring it up. And while you're bringing that up, I just had a thought on the amount of time it takes to set this up is pretty nominal. It's not a lot of time, right? And it's like if you already have the data sources, a lot of times these are, like you're saying, spreadsheets, other data sources. It might be over here, and it's just consolidating those and bringing those data sources together and creating your own knowledge. Like it's replacing knowledge bases.
Yeah. Now, I will say that the only caveat to that it's only as good as the knowledge base you have. If you've got bad data or you've got old information, then it's gonna regurgitate that. So there is a piece of that of keeping your information updated, making sure your CRMs or whatever sources of truth you're using have the right information, things of that nature. So that would be my only caveat to that. Of AI, if you put it in wrong, AI is not going to know the difference of it being right or wrong.
Exactly.
Let me
show this to you really quick. And then
honestly, once I show it to you, I think I'm going to kick over, if it's okay, just do a live demo. I think that
let's do it.
More weight, in my opinion.
I agree.
But, I will show it to you just sort of in GIF format here. This is one that's sort of an external, not integrated to anything. We had a client that said, "Hey, here's our franchise disclosure agreements as well as our operating manual, and you can come in here and see with this video, what's it say? I want to grow aggressively this year. How much should I spend on marketing?" If you want to grow aggressively this year, we suggest you consider investing 3 to 4% of your growth, so on and so forth. So this is part of their operating manual, what they provide to new franchisees or even existing franchisees. They may be within their first couple of years there, but this is essentially, again, the one that's external. I mean, we've got as well of let me pull this over really. It's just an example of my CRM. And we've got the AI in here to where essentially it can answer anything within the CRM, right? Now we could put parameters on it and permissions, things like that. So I'm sure that would be everyone's first question. Well, I don't want my entire staff to see everything in the CRM. So, but like when I think about it from an enablement standpoint, since you used that example earlier and then I gave the other example of how do I input a sale? We can come in and literally just ask how to use it. And the AI will come back with the steps in order to do that, right? So gone is the day that I need my manager over my shoulder pushing the mute button while trying to show me how to add a sale, right? So it can do a lot more than this. As you can imagine, I'm not going to type in show me financials on a live webinar for my CRM, but hopefully this is a good indication from the enablement standpoint of how this would work. Right. So this would, again, be more that integrated version versus the last example I gave, which is more of the version of just adding, PDFs and ops manuals. So here's another live version of the one I showed earlier where, let's see, how many, this is for Goldfish Swim School. How many swimmers can I have in a pool?
Right.
And then the AI will come back with exactly the parameters based on the operations manual and then where it found it within the manual itself. So it's got some pretty cool use cases, and we haven't even got into the voice portion yet. So that's an example of being able to have 24-hour service for all of your company social media accounts. That was actually a live version on my company social media there. But yeah, there's tons of other use cases: voice, SMS, email. It really runs the gamut from customer service, sales, enablement, operations. Tons of use cases here. I will wrap up with, as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, just sort of an offer. Essentially, what we're doing right now is through this particular webinar with yourself, Trina, is basically offering 10% off of anybody's first month of usage. So it's typically how we charge is do some usage, charging just based on either the action or just the time using. So for example, for outbound calls, we charge by the call. Inbound, we charge by the time or usage of it as well. So anybody that does sign up here by the end of July 31st through obviously hearing it on this webinar, we would give 10% off their first month on any of those costs.